The trace constant is very similar to the debug constant. You might have noticed it when you examined the different build options in Lesson 1.5. The trace constant is enabled on both the debug and release profiles by default. To begin, open the Market Trader project from your Sample Files folder. And open the code behind file of site.master. You're now going to add some code to display a message if the trace constant is present. Add the following code to the bottom of the page load event handler, outside the existing if directive. Label debug.text plus equals an HTML break tag and trace mode enabled. Now let's add an if directive to compile this code only if the trace constant is present. Add the following code on a new line after the endIf directive. #if trace. And add the following code at the end of the page load event handler. #endIf. Before testing this code, you're going to disable the trace constant on the release profile. First, make sure Release is selected from the drop-down menu on the top toolbar. Then right-click Market Trader in the Solution Explorer and click Properties. The project's properties appear in the main panel. Now click the Build tab. Here you can see checkboxes for Define Debug Constant and Define Trace Constant. Untick the Define Trace Constant checkbox. The debug and trace constants are both now disabled in the release profile, but both remain enabled in the debug profile. Let's test your code now. First, select Debug from the drop-down menu on the top toolbar. Now click Debug, Start Debugging. Both messages appear in the top right corner, as expected. Close your web browser now and return to Visual Studio. Now select Release from the drop-down menu on the top toolbar. And again, click Debug, Start Debugging. This time, neither message appears in the top right corner. Your if directives did not find either the trace or debug constants, so the code within the directives was not compiled. The trace and debug constants are simply values that are either present or not present. They become important when working with the system.diagnostics namespace. The system.diagnostics namespace behaves differently depending upon whether the trace and debug constants are present. You'll work with the system.diagnostics namespace in Lesson 5.8. Close your web browser now and close Visual Studio. You've now completed Lesson 5.3. Use the if directive with the trace constant.